I'll let you know. I'll let you know when to go, Carl.
Okay, Matt.
Go for it, buddy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third and final webinar in the series from Dr. Arbe on suction effective mandibular complete denture. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Arbe to present this webinar. It will be very exciting and informative. He will show some easy and difficult cases that he has treated on patients. I am really honored, and I would like to welcome Dr. Arbe to present this webinar, and I hope you very much enjoy it. And then we will come back at the end and I'll inform you of some exciting things which will be coming in the future as well. So I'd like to hand over to Dr. Arbe and thank him very much. Dr. Arbe.
Yeah, thank you for your generous introduction, Carl. And I'd like to say first that coronavirus is highly contagious and going around all over the world. And I hope you are safe during this crisis. And I'd like to thank Flabby Dental Company for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to hold 3 webinars. Now, on my first webinar, I introduced the suction mechanism of the mandibular complete denture. And the principle of suction is very simple and easy. There is no instance where air breaks the seal. If the seal is not perfect in even one place, the maxillary denture will drop down and the mandibular denture will lift up. And also the target of the suction denture is very different in comparison with different from conventional denture concept. A conventional denture target. The target of suction denture is oral mucous membrane because all of the denture borders come to contact with the oral mucous membrane, but not muscle. And also, why did I select biofunctional prosthetic system? Because BPS has unique three-step procedures of determining mandibular jaw position through that process. So BPS is highly recommended, and this BPS is shortcut way to achieve mandibular suction. On the second webinar, I introduce intraoral examination seat and share how to fabricate custom tray needed to achieve mandibular denture suction. So on the third webinar today, I'd like to report to you easy and difficult cases achieving mandibular suction with digital process and analog process. So let's show you a whole SEMCD process from start to finish from now on. Prior to the detailed explanation of these main topics, I'd like to consider the current digital denture technology. So while many patients, many dentists and the dental technicians and the denturists regard the digital denture as a panacea for all technical challenges, the perfection is still in the details from whole process, from impression, by registration and the mounting and to set up and the resin polymerization, and finally, denture delivery. So you are aware that digital denture can change only technical work, but not clinical process. This is the pyramid. This is the hierarchy of complete denture procedure. And the most important requirement to satisfy patients is to obtain the accurate reproduction of jaw-to-jaw relationship. In short, vertical dimension and vertical dimension and the horizontal mandibular jaw position is very important. So yeah, and the impression method, retentive inspiration, is in the second place. So unfortunately, the technical part is on the third position, digital lab work as well. So I think if all skills are completely performed, we can reap the beneficial advantage of the digital denture technology. So let's move on to the main topics. Sorry. So this is the intraoral examination sheet, and you can see the result of the intraoral examination. So this patient has very happy. So all regions are favorable condition. All regions are favorable condition. No poor checks. And he had a good ridgiform and sufficient sublingual spongy tissue, and he has an adequate space for denture extension in the retromolar hypophosa region. And he has nicely pear-shaped retromolar pads, and no tongue retraction, and he has a class 1, and also no discrepancy between the patient's habitual lower jaw position and no discrepancy between the patient's habitual mandibular jaw position and operator manipulated mandibular jaw position near the centric. And he didn't have temporal mandibular joint problems. So if you find that case in your daily practice, you will be able to achieve mandibular suction easily. So teeth are aligned thanks to the beautiful anatomical landmarks. For example, the center incisors are positioned at 8 millimeters from the middle of incisive papilla, and canines are positioned at 11 millimeters from the tip of rugae. And the posterior teeth, lingual cusps of posterior teeth are aligned on the top of the ridge crest. In the lower, so posterior teeth are aligned in the middle with ridge width, in the middle of ridge width. And of course, pound line is very effective to not to interrupt the tongue movement. So I emphasize that tooth setup can be done with this denture technology as well as the conventional handcrafted method. So if you find the easy case, you can fabricate or manufacture dentures produced through digital machining or handcrafted denture, handcrafted method. So I firmly believe that it's an indication for a mandibular suction. As a matter of fact, these dentures are fabricated and issued with only 2 patients visit, thanks to class 1 jaw relationship, and he has stable mandibular jaw position, and thanks to clear anatomical landmarks. But we sometimes encounter difficult patients to achieve mandibular suction. I'd like to introduce my patient, 58-year-old female, and she had class 3. And as you can see, lower teeth, lower remaining anterior teeth pushed up the upper ridge. So after all of her teeth are extracted, she became full denture, but with flabby tissue, upper maxillary flabby tissue. So it's a very difficult case because she requested us class 1 look configuration, even though she had a class 3 look at present. So this is the outcome of the intraoral examination is the most important part of making sure we know where we are going and what we are promising the patients on the patient's initial visit. So let's move on to the intraoral examination for maxilla. Flabby tissue is present from first premolar, left first premolar to right first premolar. Let's move on to the intraoral examination for the mandible. This is a guideline of ACP, complete denturism classification, and her jaw, mandibular jaw, belonged to in type B. So 16 millimeter of the diameter of the lower jaw, alveolar jaw. This is a reference with sufficient sublingual spongy tissue. So take a look at, please focus on the sublingual spongy tissue that is located behind the anterior ridge. And when the patient close her mouth, the sublingual spongy tissue swells up behind the anterior ridge. So it's diagnosed as easiest to achieve mandibular suction thanks to sufficient amount of sublingual spongy tissue. So let's go back to my patient. Ask the patient to close and open, but I couldn't observe the sufficient sublingual spongy tissue. Sublingual tissue didn't swell up behind the anterior ridge. So this is a lack of sublingual spongy tissue. Next, we need to check there is a sufficient space where a lingual denture border extended over the Marlowe-Howard line. You can see there's sufficient space. So put the check in the good column. Let's move on to the check for retromolar pad lesion. This is the distal point of the retromolar pad and the major point of the retromolar pad. And now I pushed the anterior part of the retromolar pad with borrow instrument, then it branches. So because the fibrous tissue is present at the anterior half of the retromolar pad. Next, ask the patient to close her mouth slowly. Then you can see only posterior flabby tissue is deformed. So this condition is diagnosed as a small amount of changes in the shape of the retromolar pad from the mouth opening closing movement. Put a check in the good column. Okay, let's move on to the check for a temporomandibular joint condition. Place your finger at 13 millimeter from the ear canal, and ask the patient to open and close. She had a slight deviation to the lateral movement, but she didn't have no creaking sound and no crepitation. So this small amount of deviation, lateral deviation, doesn't affect the suction effectiveness. This is a result of the intraoral examination. So there are 4 poor checks, and she had a lack of sublingual spongy tissue here, and class 3. So tongue position in class 3 is very careful because the tongue position in class 3 is lower back position. So lingual denture border, sublingual denture border easily exposed, and she had a flabby tissue. So to prevent the mandibular denture from lifting caused by the lack of sublingual spongy tissue, the optional sublingual sealing technique is mandatory. And the patient has maxillary flabby tissue, so optional flabby impression technique is required. Let's move on to the clinical performance. So first, I'd like to show you how to take a preliminary impression for the maxilla. So this is a thermoplastic heat moldable tray to adjust easily and modify easily to match the patient's mouth. It's an Accudent system. 2 millimeter oversized tray is much better than the patient. So light-bodied impression material is squirted from the hammer notch to the front, just to the right side. Overlap the midpoint to reduce the air bubbles at the meeting area. And light-bodied impression material is applied behind the flabby tissue and the bolt. Tray molded with heavy-bodied impression material is placed and apply pressure upward. Of course, wipe off the excessive impression materials to prevent the gag reflex. Okay, finally, pinch the upper lip, then impression material going up to the bottom of the sulcus. So, so how beautiful it is. And beautiful impression motivates the dental technician. It's very important work for us. So when fabricating SEMCD custom tray, the primary models are created based on the frame cutback tray impression. And the tray design is always uniform, regardless of whether it's unfavorable or favorable rigid condition. And several measures must be provided to the custom tray to enhance the suction effectiveness. And occlusal plane is most important to make even pressure when taking impression. So everyone will be able to achieve mandibular denture suction by using a custom tray to be fulfilled above requirements. So let's observe the variation of the retromolar pad region. Retromolar pads are plump, stretched out and flattened in its opened mouth, and shortened and flattened, shortened and plumped in its closed mouth. So the target shape of the retromolar pad we want in preliminary impression and the precision impression stages we want should be a natural form of the retromolar pad at the resting position of the mandible. Closed mouth impression is very important for us. If the patient mouth is very small, the frame cutback tray should be trimmed off or cut it off. If the patient with a shallow labial vestibule, anterior part should be cut off. So first, light-bodied impression material is squirted from the lingual retromolar pad region and to the opposite side, and come up to the front and go back to the starting position. If you find a space here, please cover that space with the impression material. And the frame cutback tray molded with a heavy-bodied impression material is inserted into the mouth and place it down, straight down, be sure not to load it down, and ask the patient to stick out the tongue only one time, and please wait for 7 seconds until the tongue rests. And change your finger position, but be sure not to rotate the tray down posterior. Straight down, always straight down. And ask the patient to hold the handle with her lips. And finally, massage. This motion prevent the building up of the impression materials within the cheeks. So anyway, be sure to apply pressure, push the tray straight down. Be sure not to load it down because the retromolar pad will be isolated and the impression materials on the retromolar pad region will become very thin. And finally, the retromolar pad would be deformed when pouring plaster. So beautiful, so natural impression with natural shape around the retromolar pad region. Next, what we are going to do is to measure the temporary vertical dimension using a phonetic method or freeway space, or make the M sound And finally, blow air method. Centric tray bite record is a single-step double arch impression technique, but it's very difficult for everyone. So the two-stage impression technique is highly recommended to you. So first, lower impression should be, your impression is taken, and after that, upper impression will be taken. And be sure, please ask the patient to swallow. Oh, sorry. Ask the patient close together until the previous made measurement. And finally, ask the patient to swallow so that the mandibular jaw moves near the centric. These are two models and bite block. And the models are mounted thanks to this beautiful bite block. And fortunately, she had an anterior open bite, very severe case because upper and lower denture are shifting up and forward even after dentures are issued. And class 3. So let's move on to the some tray design. Please give the 7 measures to enhance the denture sealing levels of uniform. Yeah. So sorry, 7 measures should be provided to the custom tray to enhance the denture sealing. First, the retromolar pads should be covered with the denture base thinly and avoid the sinistering. And the buccal concavity should be created at the buccal shelf region. And bite rim, so bite rim is placed in the mid of ridge width. And the concavity is created to maintain the lip support, and a large space should be provided to accommodate the tongue space. And finally, the concavity is created at the polished surface of the retromolar hard fossa region, where the tongue compressed that area to complete the compensatory closure. And the tray design is always uniform, but it's customized with changing the thickness of the tray border to express patient's individuality. This patient had tiny lower ridge, so lower ridge form. So the more thickness should be given to the buccal shelf region to increase the sealing area. And unfortunately, this patient has a lack of sublingual spongy tissue. So more thickness should be given to the sublingual lesion so that we will get a sufficient sealing area, and finally, as a result, we will get enough suction. So what we are going to do first in the clinical room, surgical room, we needed to check for the parallelism of the custom tray. This is our occlusal plane, and that is made from Japan. And we can observe midline, horizontal line, and the compass line. So she had a class 3, so take a look at. This is the compass line, but the occlusal plane is tilted down, so because in class 3. Next, we may not be aware that there is a large space under the denture base, tray base, even though the upper and lower bite rims seem to meet evenly, because centric tray bite is just a temporary bite record, but not a precise bite record. In order to check if the tray bite error, bite restoration error, wax is placed on the 4 points, canines and molars. And place it back to the mouth and ask the patient close down. And please check if the space is even or uneven. So you can see the even space. So we will remove the wax. We don't change because we don't change the vertical dimension. And if you find the uneven space, you will initiate the next step precision impression with wax. And you can see a huge amount of uneven space between upper and lower plates, unfortunately. So now SOMETA-M should be reset. So maxillary flabby tissue refers to a mobile tissue, mobile tissue most commonly seen in the anterior part of the maxilla. In a case with maxillary flabby tissue, the denture made with a standard impression technique would be dislodged up and forward and fall due to its mushy and soft tissue that is stipulated by the excessive pressure stimuli from the anterior teeth or anterior chewing. So in the past, two solutions for flabby lesions has been introduced: non-pressure impression technique and the surgical removal. I'd like to show you non-pressure impression technique quickly. Border molding has been carried out, and the final precision impression has been carried out. And the impression material is removed on the flabby tissue region, and the impression is placed back to the mouth, and the impression material is placed from the outside of the mouth. So this is a non-pressure impression technique. And another method is surgical removal. The dental surgeon removed the inflamed flabby tissue surgically. But let me pose a question. Can it really eliminate its root cause? What is the root cause of flabby tissue? Generate of the flabby tissue. So here I'd like to show you treatment process of inflamed flabby tissue. The cause of flabby tissue is, of course, overstimulation from the anterior chewing. The purpose of the flabby tissue, so to reduce the anterior chewing, instead, the posterior chewing should be established. So unique impression technique is required, and even after dentures are issued, 3 requirements are mandatory to maintain the maxillary denture stability. So finally, the inflammation will gradually resolve and the flabby tissue will be normalized. So this is my flabby impression technique, optional flabby impression technique. First, heavy-bodied impression is applied here. Pop the tray in, and first apply pressure vertically, and then next push the tray backward to bounce back the flabby tissue like this. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, press it back, and first apply pressure vertically, and the next push the flabby tissue bounce back. Like this. So if the flabby tissue, inflamed flabby tissue persists, the inflammation will progress further and the condition will deteriorate. Then the impression material on the flabby tissue, only on the flabby tissue is removed. Make the space on the top of the flabby tissue. And of course, impression material on the frenum is removed. So we need to denture border thickness so that denture will be retained by the orbicularis oris, and the denture will be supported by the orbicularis oris and retained by the retained denture is supported by the nasal spine, and denture is retained by the orbiculosaurus muscle. Next, border molding. One thick layer of impression material is applied, entire denture border, and dental technician has already blocked out with wax at flabby tissue region, so denture easily shifting up when taking impression. So this is a dot, so as a stopper to prevent the tray from shifting up and forward. Okay, apply pressure and apply pressure with vibration and push it back and pull the cheek down. And ask the patient to move her jaw side to side to prevent the prevent the coronal process from hitting. And the lower tray, and ask the patient ooh, ee, to capture the labial and buccal movement of the maxilla. Okay, and stretch the upper lips by herself. Okay, close together. Okay, next. So as you can see, sufficient thickness of denture border can be seen at the labial lesion. And the impression material on the ridge crest should be removed because it's an immobile tissue. We will make the space, and so that all of the denture border sinks down to the next step. Okay, remove the stopper, and the sore spot should be grinded off. Okay, this is the final impression of the upper denture. Light body impression is applied, and apply pressure vertically and push it back slightly, and pull the cheek down and lip down. And ask the patient to move her jaw side to side. And the lower tray is inserted into the mouth and close down. And ooh, ee, ooh, ee. 2 movements. If you like a kiss motion, please ask the patient to slight kiss, okay? This is a final upper impression. So as you can see, the sufficient thick denture border can be seen at the anterior region. Very important to reduce the denture mobility in a case with maxillary flabby tissue. So in order to control the inflammation in flabby ridges, 3 requirements are essential. First, here, maintain the sufficient amount of anterior clearance should be maintained to reduce the anterior chewing, anterior stimuli. And next, space is created on the top of the flabby tissue. And finally, please maintain the posterior occlusion so that the inflammation will gradually resolve and the flabby tissue will be shrunk and the tissue will be normalized. This is another case, I'm sorry, but it's a very important case. This is a comparison with the initial visit and 3 years after treatment. So inflamed flabby tissue was observed, but after 3 years, no inflammation. So every 4 months, regular checkup is very important, and we always adjust occlusal surface and maintain the anterior 2 mm anterior space. Okay, let's move on to the mandibular precision impression. So she had a problem with sublingual spongy tissue and class 3. So I'd like to highlight the optional impression technique first. And also you will be able to learn this impression technique the impression technique is patient-centered impression technique, but not the operated manipulated impression technique. And also it's carried out closed mouth impression technique. It's carried out with closed mouth impression technique. Okay. If the patient has a strong tongue retraction or so lack of sublingual spongy tissue, the space is created behind the lingual denture border. In order to fulfill that space, the silicone putty is highly recommended to you. So apply the denture adhesive at the lingual denture border, tray border, make it flat like a sausage, and press it to the sublingual denture border. So from deflection point to deflection point of S-curve, and press it. And after confirmation of the tray position, operator push the impression materials to fulfill that space and ask the patient to swallow. Be sure not to ask the patient, move your tongue forward and stick out the tongue. And move it forward, move the tongue forward and side to side. Only swallow, only swallow. And ask the patient to open. And the operator hold the firmly tray down. And please wait for a second. It's very difficult to swallow without saliva, so dental hygienists pour some water by the pipette. So the surface of the impression material should be shaved off, and impression material on the interior side of the tray must be removed to avoid the overimpression pressure for the next impression. Let's move on to the 5 basic movements. I spent 5 years to determine 5 basic movements. U-E, move the tongue across the upper lip and push the backside of the anterior bite rims with the tongue and finally swallow. So this is the reason for suction denture impression is doable for everyone. Patient-centered impression technique and closed mouth impression technique. Do you remember compound impression technique, open mouth impression technique, and also how much of the compound impression material should be softened? It's very difficult for everyone. And how strongly should the operator pull the buccal mucosa or labial mucosa? So I think it must be technically sensitive. So suction impression is a patient-centered impression technique. And heavy body impression materials are applied entire denture border and place it back to the mouth. In a case with difficulty, please confirm the tray position. So tray position is always in the correct position. And apply pressure for 7 seconds and close together and pull the lower lip up because the mentalis muscle is very weak muscle. So operators should pull the lower so lip up and ooh-ee, hold the tray down and stick move the tongue side to side and stick out the tongue and lock the chin, and the patient push the back side of the limbs with her tongue. Then lingual floor swells up. It becomes stiff to capture the sublingual floor movement. And finally swallow. It's a comprehensive movement. Ask the patient to do it maybe 2 or 3 times. Of course, depending on the impression working time. A good suction. Okay, so impression materials on the crest and excess impression materials on the frenum and the sinuous ring should be removed prior to the final precision impression. Please remove the impression materials on the crest to make the space on the top of the ridge, so that the denture border, all over the denture border sinks down when taking impression with even pressure. Occlusal plane is very important. Occlusal plane of custom tray is very important. The impression materials on the frenum is removed as well. Light-bodied impression material is spread out, labial part and lingual part, and buccal shelf ridge evenly. So impression will be taken in the same manner. Place it back and the confirmation of the tray position, not to catch the cheek, and apply pressure firmly down for 7 seconds. And close down and pull the lower lip up to capture labial movement. Concavity is created at the mentalis part. To capture the lingual and buccal and labial movement. Stick out the tongue, so to capture the tongue movement, and push the back side of the tray. Then we can to capture the lingual floor movement. And finally swallow. Okay. So I like to check if this suction action. No sound, but it's okay. Her impression is not yet over, because upper and lower tray is shifting up and forward due to the presence of the flabby tissue in the maxilla. So the posterior denture border seal would break a little bit. So monophase impression material applied as a functional post-dam technique. This is a monophase, light heavy-bodied impression material. One layer monophase impression material is applied and place it back to the mouth and ask the patient to close together. So you can see the slight thickness of the impression materials, blue impression materials. So it verifies that the denture has shifted up and forward a little bit due to the maxillary flabby tissue. Let's move on to the pin tracing. So white plate is removed and replaced with the striking plate and the stylus of the Nasomera M. This is a Gothic arch. I'd like to show you the Kimura's method. First, ask the patient, tap, tap, tap on her back position, forward, backward, tap, 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 to the left, to the back position, and to the left, to the back position, tap, tap, tap. It leads to reset the lateral movement, forward, backward once again, and finally to the right, to the back, to the right, to the back, tap, tap, tap. So remove the upper denture to check if a figure is beautiful or not. Oh, very beautiful Gothic arch. And the next, ask the patient, tap, 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 tap on her relaxed position. So as you can see, the tapping point is approximately located approximately 0.5 millimeter from the apex point. It shows that only 13% of the dentures patients have correspondence with tapping point and the apex point. And after check the bite record, this is a silicone putty because of one pin affect the denture stability. So this is a stabilization. So silicone putty is placed on both sides equally. And finally, so white resolution silicone is applied and fix the upper and lower tray. Below the midline, if you need a hyper lip line and a corner of the mouth. So these are final impressions. And so sufficient thick denture border can be seen. So the denture will be supported by the nasal spine and retained by the orbiculosus muscle and lower. So sufficient thickness of denture border can be seen at the retromolar fossa region to enhance or to increase the sealing area at the sublingual region. And so a buccal shape denture border is very, very nice. It's low, that was rolled up to enhance the sealing or enhance the support area. And the thinness can be seen at the little molar fossa region, not to disturb the tongue movement. And finally, compensatory closure will be completed. So the purpose of boxing is very so important. So the 5 mm, so the peripheral border is contained of so many information for suction is contained at about 5 millimeter from the peripheral border. So boxing is very important to reproduce the denture border, accurate denture border with denture border with into resin material. Okay, so this patient was very tricky. So because she had a class 3, but she requested a class 1 configuration. And finally, take a look at the incisor, center incisor is located at 14 millimeter from the incisive papilla. And canines are placed at 16 millimeters from the tip of the first rugae. So very difficult case. So actually dental technician fabricate wax denture and arrange wax denture 3 times to satisfy patient with our wax denture. Very difficult. She looks like very beautiful, or like a class 1 look. This is the eyeball-based injector. So it's a fully automated all-in-one system, easier to operate than the previous eyeball cup resin. I love this. Yeah. Okay. And she requested us more aesthetic beauty. So gingival characterization has been carried out with SL neck score. So beautiful. So I'm very happy because the patient accept my demand, and I manufactured digital dentures from the same patient. First, custom trays are designed and milled. This is a UTS CAD. That is most important to determine the occlusal plane. That is similar to the faceball. And undercuts and bony projection should be blocked out with wax. And tray design is always uniform in the mandible. Regardless of whether it's an analog process or a digital process. These are completed custom trays. So 3-shape design, soft, and add-on Flabby, but then to professional software. This space for Nasometer CAD. So even digital custom tray, seven ideas should be given to the custom tray. And this patient has a tiny posterior ridge form, so the sufficient thickness of the denture border should be given to the back or shelf region. And she had a lack of sublingual spongy tissue, so more thickness should be given to the sublingual region to increase the sealing area. And the tray, custom trays are milled by PM7. These are impressions. Please compare comparison between a digital workflow and analog workflow. Almost same, I think. And a pin tracing. So the same figure, even though it's a Nasometer CAD, regardless of whether it's a Nasometer CAD or Nasometer M. So I firmly believe that the same clinical performance should be carried out even with digital or analog. Suction effective impressions and the definitive vital records are essential. So upper and lower impressions are scanned. So please make sure 5 mm of peripheral border should be replaced with a resin material, So here, take a look at. So sufficient denture border should be replaced with impression denture border should be replaced with a resin material. But we had a bad experience, negative experience. So my friend placed an order for digital denture to US American digital denture company. So, but we are very shocked. We received unexpected dentures that were quite different in shape from the original impression we have sent. Take a look at thick denture border can be seen, but final denture, oh my gosh. And on the lower, so thick denture border can be seen, but very thin, different denture. So this is because the manufacturers of that company scanned only interior side of the denture base without denture border and the polished surface. I insist that 5 mm from the peripheral border is most important to achieve mandibular suction. So teeth are selected, and I selected a fonalis and linearized occlusion. And I have already stated she was very tricky to make it more beautiful because this is a first monoblock because we manufactured 2 monoblocks. First one, unfortunately, so first monoblock, her anterior teeth didn't appear. And the second monoblock, second one, so we arranged the teeth position, tooth position, and tooth not only tooth position and occlusal plane. So I'd like to show you digital workflow for the final digital denture design. This is the order sheet. And a 3-shape digital scanner, 3-shape digital scanner and the software. So I have already stated the tray design, final denture design is very important. and blocked out with wax and relieve the so bony projection with wax. And teeth are aligned. Of course, digital denture reduce the working time, laboratory working time. But this case is very difficult to manufacture, produced through digital machining. Okay, upper and lower teeth are aligned, and the gingiva has been formed. So I emphasize that even though the laboratory process will be changed by the digital machining, the clinical process wouldn't change. So inadequately acquired final impression and interocclusal vertical record will create ill-fitting and unfunctional dentures. So I manufactured two different types of dentures by a SEGA printing machine, a SEGA Max, and about steel suction. And this is a milling monoblock denture. Even monoblock denture has strong enough suction. So in my small number of experience, milling denture is milling suction is superior than the printing denture because, as you can see, printing denture. So due to the presence of sprues. This is a final slide. So I want to conclude that suction denture, SEMCD concept, and the easy to systematic denture fabrication system, BPS, are incorporated with digital technology. The more accurate and well-fitting catechism denture will be served to the patients in the near future. The digital dentures from equivalent. Upper and pop the lower denture in. Can you hear negative pressure sound? Tap, tap, tap. Swallow. Open. Oh, very nice. Okay. Thank you. So thank you for listening, and I'm very satisfied with my lecture and the webinar. But I hope you will find my presentation to be informative, impressive, and worth learning. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arby. It was, again, another excellent presentation full of amazing information. And I am sure, judging by the comments, that it has been very well received and everyone has enjoyed it very much. There are, again, hundreds of people from around the world, Australia, Taiwan, everywhere, watching and seeing how much they are enjoying it. So thank you once again.
Yeah, please introduce the instructors and the distributors of frame cutback tray, please.
Yes, what I'll do that on, I'm going to make a presentation for that. I'll post that tomorrow. Okay. What I would like to ask you, Dr. Arby, is how do you keep your enthusiasm? Because you always are asking the questions and challenging what people think and in making new discoveries. How do you keep up your enthusiasm?
I think when I was young, so after graduation of the dental school, I decided to work for patients for the beneficial advantage of edentulous patients around the world. I continue that mind. So from since 1987.
Yeah.
Yeah, still enthusiastic.
And you do not stop. You just keep going. It's amazing.
But I'm getting old. So next near 65. So
Wow.
I pass my baton to instructors, world instructors in the near future.
Yeah. Fantastic, fantastic. And just like to say to everybody, Dr. Abe has given up his time here very graciously at the end of each day he's been to work, and he's come on to help everybody understand and improve their denture techniques. It's a great pleasure for me to watch, as I'm sure it is for everyone, and I thank you for giving up your time to deliver this. We are going to do some future things for everybody watching. We're going to have a SEMCD instructors webinar where we are going to go through all of the questions which have been posted on all of the different groups, and we are going to get the instructors together, do a webinar, and everybody watching, if you have questions or you want to know more, we can answer them, and we'll also explain where you can get your SEMCD training from qualified instructors all around the world. We have them in Taiwan, China, Korea, UK, Australia, everywhere. So you can get the correct instruction. All instructors have been trained directly from Dr. Abe, so you'll get it taught correctly. And we have many, many more things coming with regards to helping you provide the best quality dentures. We'll have digital denture in more detail on Thursday this week. I'll do an introduction to digital dentures, so everybody can keep an eye on the Ivor page, and you'll get some really great webinars coming up. So it's late over there. Are you going to have your evening meal now?
Yes, from now on, with my wife.
Okay. Well,
yeah, thank you for your kindness and efforts. Yeah, to invite me to this beautiful webinars. Thank you so much.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much for doing them, Dr. Abe.
Everyone, take care of your health. Yeah, bye.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, bye, bye.